Hello and welcome to The Lobby, GameSpot's weekly hangout every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, right here on GameSpot.com. I'm your host, Danny Dwyer. How you doing? We have a show this week. We weren't going to have a show this week. We did that whole thing at PAX last week. All the PAX people saw it. They were like, that's great, we saw it live. You're going to broadcast that on Tuesday, right? Kinda. We're going to have all that stuff on the site, but we decided there's so much stuff to talk about. Why not have another Lobby? So today we're going to talk about Mad Max. We're going to talk about Metal Gear Solid 5. But first of all, Andy Bauman, Robert Handlery, you guys are here to tell me all about a game that you guys saw at PAX, which I know Kevin Van Ord loved at E3. A lot of buzz around it at the moment. Tell me what's so good about Dreadnought, Rob.
What is so good about Dreadnought is
the spaceship.
It's the slow-moving spaceship that, when you look at it, the gameplay-wise, it doesn't look that fast-paced. But the cool thing is that there's actually so much to do as far as managing your energy in the ship, abilities and power-up options, that it just really creates this high-energy, high-suspenseful kind of MOBA field of a map, right?
It's weird because, yeah, like you guys are coming back saying this is super fun to play. Kevin said at E3 it was one of the best demos he's had. It's exactly to your point. It's the type of game that over gameplay doesn't look super exciting because it's so laborious and slow and whatnot. But you're saying like the moment-to-moment action, there's like you're kind of managing a lot while even if it looks like there's not a lot going on, right?
Right. So there's like two things that you're constantly doing as far as control-wise. So right here, you see your power abilities on top, but the main thing is you got this power management where you're basically putting into three things. There's an example there where I am managing it and I'm putting it into shields. When I know that my health is going down, time to throw on the shields. When I'm on an attack course, throw it into power.
Weapons, yeah.
Weapons.
So it's kind of like Elite or stuff like that, but I guess the big difference is that those games are like dogfighting games, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Dreadnought is an online team-based game where you're not look how slow this thing's moving. You're piloting like really big ships, right?
Really big ships, and if you're not into the slow-moving ones, you get your kind of like quick and nimble Millennium Falcon that does more hit-and-run type stuff. Obviously you have lower health, so the idea is you go in, you go out, and you're constantly moving around. And then here you have your huge lulking, dreadnoughts that have, really awesome, like this. Some of them have like nukes, where like you fire a nuke and then you can remote detonate it, and it just does like insane amount of damage. But yeah, there's just so many cool abilities, and I saw it a year ago, and it was, it was fun. But now they're doing these things where it's like, there's the nuke right there.
It just
annihilates you. So here's my favorite. So this guy right here. Oh man, and it was so cool when they did this. So this is a plasma ram. So watch, throw in shields, and then you engage your plasma ram right here, and you just ram these dudes. It's so freaking exciting.
So that's like you literally ramming into people with that thing.
Yeah, and it just like the smaller ships are they're done. And then here's another move coming up. And by the way, I had the devs next to me, and they're kind of guiding me. And there's these guys yelling at me because you have to line up the ship, you have to charge it up, and someone will see it from a mile away, but here he goes, boom!
God.
It's, they're slow-moving ships, so it's like there's such a suspense and amount of tension, like trying to get to a guy and using it.
Is there like a pleasure in knowing that one shot, like Enterprise style, just killed about 500 ensigns that were just like blue suits or whatever? That
Exactly,
were just like...
immediately, yeah. So here's another moment. Yeah, there's a nuke I fire here, and you remote detonate it. But then you get cool things too, where, say I'm dying and I need help. So I talk to my teammate and I say, I need help. He can teleport in as a power ability and then assist me. On the flip, another guy, say I'm attacking a guy and he's about to teleport because it's kind of like a warm-up period.
Yeah.
I can throw down like a disruptor ability to stop him from warping.
Cool.
And so there's a lot of management in your abilities.
So can I roll that back a second? Are you saying there's a medic ship?
Yeah, so there's a guy, this is a dev, he's like, I'm just gonna like basically help you out right here. So now I'm warping to get closer to a guy because he had lower health.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's a medic ship, there's like a sniper class, which, those guys kind of lurk around the sides of the maps.
sniper ships.
Yeah.
This is
Sniper
weird, right?
ships.
Because this is so the last game I love Elite Dangerous and I love those games, but what this is sort of reminiscent of is Star Wars Battlefront when I played that mode where it was like TIE Fighter versus X-Wing basically.
Yeah.
Whereas or I guess the Rebels versus the fucking whatever, fuck Star Wars. But that's like a dogfighting simulator, right? So that's like you're speeding around, you're dying really quickly, you're respawning, you're dying really quickly. They've got loads of like creep almost, which are worth less points, which are AI, who are kind of dumb. This looks a lot more like something like World of Tanks, where you're working as like a team. Your lives kind of matter. Like, what's the sort of turnover and like time to die, and how long are the games? What's the pace of it?
Yeah, they're like 10-minute games. This is a new game mode they showed off, where it's like last man standing. But instead of spectating the rest of the match, you get to pilot these really maneuverable. You just keep spawning in these guys. But the idea behind this, which is so cool, is I die. Say I got my last teammate who's actually flying around, and my whole team are these little fighters. You have to communicate with these guys and take on the other enemies. In that you have really low firepower, but when there's 5 of you swarming on a guy, you work together. You can take other guys down.
It's like what was the game where you respawn as a pigeon when you died? It was Arma, right? Wasn't it Arma Online or something? They did that. Andy,
cool.
what is it you like about Dreadnought?
Good question, Daniel. So it's like 5-on-5, right? You jump in, easy to jump in. It's got like Crisis style, like maximum armor, maximum weapons. So it's really fast to select, which is awesome. Because you imagine if you're actually at the helm of one of these ships, talking about like Elite Dangerous, that's kind of like cumbersome. So you're like, where am I at? Slow down my engines, but I got all this momentum. And it's like, oh, I gotta like shoot, but I gotta like power up my weapons and wait, and it's like, wait for the lock on.
It's kind of a whole other menu over to the side.
It's like a simulation, Whereas this takes all that's awesome about piloting a ship, like lasers and fucking rockets swarming everywhere, and then like plasma things and heals, and warping and ramming, and it's like, it puts it all immediately available to you in a battle arena where there's verticality, like, you're not just going at each other on a map, you're flying and maneuvering and
using
going around.
the terrain.
And there's cover. There's like little floating space stations and shit like that. Speaking of the sniper, like that was my favorite class.
Yeah.
Because I would go like way far on the edges and like go through these debris of like asteroid mining facilities or whatever they are, and just like take these really long shots at these ships, and they were like did devastating damage. But I take like one shot and I'm dead. So it was really cool to like balance that out where. You got all these games like these first-person shooters coming out, like Lawbreakers is just announced.
Yeah.
Overwatch is going to be great. Battleborn. This is like that, but it's ships, man. You jump right in, but you're doing huge Battlestar Galactica, like era-esque like ships.
And it was kind of what you're saying is it's like easy to pick up as opposed to like most space shooty strategy games are kind of a little bit cumbersome.
Play around. It's just like a shooter. But it's spaceships, which is like, that's pretty cool. Like World of Tanks, you're saying that's a good.
And it's another free-to-play PC game, which this is. They're not saying if it's coming to consoles yet. It probably is. They probably haven't got that stuff signed yet. So I guess to that end, did it feel free-to-play in that like the sort of the hook with those games often is that like they are very repeatable. They're very fun.
Yeah.
But you're kind of chasing a card as well. So like, are you unlocking different ships? Are you unlocking different modes? Are you unlocking different like aspects to your ships? And that sort of stuff.
So there are different classes of ships. The idea is that like if I focus on one class, I can kind of unlock other ships, but another thing they showed off, which we couldn't show, was now you're able to take your ship and customize the hell out of it. So it's like a control tower, you see in like a Star Destroyer. Screw that, I don't want that. Take it out. Choose like 5 options of another type of control tower. Like by the end of it, your ship looks completely different, and then that's not even bringing in like paint jobs. Different types of abilities like nukes you can throw on, and those have really cool looking
so like different
models.
weapons and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, so that's what you're going for, and that's what they said. It's not really clear whether that's like where the payment goes in, but they said it's going to be a very horizontal progression as far as unlocking.
Cool.
Yeah.
I guess final question. I'm kind of interested in this for a bunch of reasons. One of them is that this is being developed by Jaeger, who are the folks who made Spec Ops: The Line, which is the type of.
There's no white phosphorus though.
No, there's no killing civilian mini game happening in here.
Well, I don't know, maybe.
They kind of took third-person shooters and they made something very sort of unique. I'm not guessing there's going to be the narrative through line that game had. in Dreadnought. But did it stand out for any other reasons? Is it just like, does it feel like a good balance between simulation and arcade? Like, what is the sort of core thing that you really enjoyed about playing Dreadnought that like made you want to come on and speak volumes about it?
It just, because I'm a huge spaceship guy. Like, anything that has spaceships flying around, sci-fi elements, I'm sold.
I'm sorry about what I said about Star Wars.
It's all right. But what is so great about this game is you get so much of that visually, audio-wise. Just laying, broadsiding another ship and just like all power. Like make a risk. Like, ah, man, my health is a little low. Screw it. I'm putting everything into power. I'm going to take this guy out. I'm going to flee. It just feels very strategic in that way. And again, I'm only playing by myself. But what I really gathered was like, man, if like I had some buddies with me who are helping me out with support, sniping, talking to your other buddies is gonna make this game really fun to play.
Yeah, because the ships aren't easy to kill. They're actually like, they take a beating, especially if you're good at managing, there's a healer or you're doing your shields. So you do have to like focus fire, and the coordination is cool because it's like an admiral taking his fleet. But you know how like naval combat in, for example, Black Flag is kind of like really boring after a while. It's just like, hold down the thing, shoot some cannons, and then like run away. And that can happen in space games too.
Right.
But this, it's more like a shooter. It's like totally arcadey, but also like you feel like you're accomplishing something that took like naval, like academy style.
Yeah, like the kills are satisfying because
for sure.
took you a bunch. Last questions. Can you hear the explosions in space?
See, I was thinking the map I was on was in atmosphere,
Okay.
so I could.
I saw space levels. Could you hear the explosions?
Danny, don't do this.
Was it silent?
No.
There's actually sound in space, I heard, but like, it's
like your
just-
eyes are closed when you say that.
It's just
There's actually sound in space.
I was reading something. It's like different.
Yeah, we'll see about that. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on and telling us all about Dreadnought. If you have seen Dreadnought or if you play space games, please let us know what you thought about our coverage of Dreadnought at PAX and E3 as well previously in the comment box below.
Ooh, sexy.
Ow! It's hot down there. We got a bunch more stuff to talk about today. Oh my goodness, the trailers, they're everywhere. Forza Motorsport 6, we put up a preview on the site only a couple of days ago.
Demo's out today if you want to check it out.
And we've got a trailer for it
Right now.
You were not in focus.
With all of my brothers, I always wondered how far we could go. If we could break through the sea on above us, there'd be no point of us looking below. We could be free. We could be free. Finally, we could be free. I close my eyes to see it. I'll take my coat and let myself be. I said, myself a king. I said, myself a king. Myself a king.
Get the Xbox One limited edition bundle.
This week we see the launch of one of the most anticipated open world video games of recent memory, and also Mad Max. Hi Peter Brown, how you doing?
Good.
Is that a nice little soft lob for you?
Yeah.
Doink. GameSpot's very own Chum Bucket, how you doing, my friend?
What the hell does that mean?
I don't know. You
I
tell
love
me.
the harpoons of publishers who put out games I don't love.
Sure.
Or love.
Or you just come to work not wearing many clothes, disheveled, and just
They have a hard
overtly
time
gross.
getting shirts on me.
Yeah? Yeah, not, they sure do. Tell me about Doom. Ask me about Doom.
No.
No.
Yeah, look, people seem to think I hate Mad Max. I don't. There are parts about it I really like. That world looks amazing. Apart from a few frame rate issues, which I'm pretty sure will be patched out, the game just is rendered so well. And when you're driving, which is one of the best parts of the game in terms of gameplay, things are moving so fast, and the action is so hectic, and you have a lot of tools at your disposal, and you feel like you're participating in a Mad Max film. You know, you get the sense that like there's this movement and speed and chaos and grit and grease, and you're right in the middle of it, and that's awesome.
So what is it that doesn't work?
There are a few things that don't work. I'm going to start with, I think the most obvious thing that's on the screen right now is the hand-to-hand combat. Regardless of the game, Mad Max is not known as a character to get into fist fights. But this combat doesn't really seem suited to the game either. You know, a lot of attention was paid to car combat, and that is definitely the most exciting. But then you have to go do these things where you're fighting enemies, and the combat system is very reminiscent of something you'd find from other Warner Brothers games like Batman or Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, where you mash an attack button, an enemy has an icon above their head when they're going to attack. You either evade or block. This is a very simple system that, while I think many people accept it, and that's fine, and maybe they enjoy it, I don't. Because for me, if I can exploit it by literally sitting there and tapping my fingers like this to win a battle, there's no challenge. I'm not being rewarded or making good use of my time.
Yeah, and I think the nuance of that is lost on some people, where I remember like when you told me that and you were like literally saying you don't even need to look at the screen.
Yeah.
You were just tapping it. And there was like videos before of like how in Shadow of Mordor that same thing was the case, but that was with like a high-spec character who had like very specific things unlocked.
Yeah.
This is like right out the gate, the combat is just never really gets any better than that.
No, I mean, you unlock new skills for Max, but you don't really have much control over them. They're just more contextual things that happen when an enemy is, say, to your right or your left, but you're just pressing square, and they just happen to be there. At some point, an enemy will throw an unblockable move your way, but then you just tap the right shoulder button and you're safe, and you can go back to doing what you were doing. And I don't think an extra variable that calls for one button like twice in a fight really makes the combat that much more interesting. It's, as I said in my review, it's too simple and dumbed down, and it doesn't add anything to the experience. It just feels like a waste of time, and it's like something there to pad out the gameplay.
It sounds like it's just a lot of like boring stuff you need to get through.
Sure.
Tell me about the like missions themselves, the quests. Are they interesting? Is the sort of core like loop of what you're doing in the game, is that fun?
So you spend a lot of time driving around the map, getting from one location to another, typically to take down a camp or remove like sniper posts or something. And the reason you're doing this is because you've made an agreement with the chief who's sort of running the region that you're in, and you're trying to lower the threat from enemies against them. And so by doing that, they then agree to help you get a new part for your car. This story is driven by, I need a new muffler, I need a new engine, you gotta get that grill, man. Like, that is seriously every story beat, is that you're trying to build this car.
The magnum opus.
Yeah, and the game requires you to have certain things. There was an early mission in the game where you had to have these specific parts. Before I got there, I had unlocked better stuff and had it on my car, but I couldn't continue the mission until I downgraded to these parts. So it was this weird sort of function of forcing you to get parts for your car by making you play some pretty boring stuff. And a lot of that is going into camps and doing like fist fights with guys and basically clearing the camp, right? And when you're doing those activities, you're collecting resources such as scrap. And maybe you want to save this part for the question and answer, but I'm happy to talk about my issue with scrap right now, if you like.
Yeah, actually, yeah. I didn't pick out one specific on that, but like one of the things that people were, there's a couple of like sore points that people have. Actually, interestingly enough, when we were talking about this before, people thought that you were being too picky, whereas actually the criticisms of your review seem to be very picky in their own right. One of them being that like the fact that the inventory system seems a bit cumbersome, or that you can carry too much stuff. So like, yeah, talk about that.
So everything that you purchase with scrap, which is basically shorthand for metal that you collect around the world. And no, not any metal. I mean, it's not like you can just say, hey, no one's using that fence, I'm going to take that and trade it in. You got to find these little piles of scrap. That's fine. Whatever. I can get past that part because that's a little gamey thing. And gamey things exist in a lot of games, like such as The Witcher, which is someone pointed out to me like, well, you can carry so much stuff in The Witcher and nobody complains.
Not that much.
Well, yeah. I mean, but the difference here in Mad Max is that the world alone is a world that's built on limitations and how well equipped you are to overcome those limitations. And the game imposes this notion on you by limiting the amount of bullets you can carry.
Yeah.
Right? Things like that, like forcing you to get water, to survive. I mean, it is a game that tells you you need to struggle for survival. But it also tells you, I need you to go out and collect piles and piles and piles of metal that you can carry, even though you can't carry a few more bullets.
Yeah.
Now, maybe I should have put that detail in my review. I realized I neglected to sort of show a counterpoint to what I was saying, which is why I think it's a problem, beyond it just being inauthentic. But it's because the game tries so hard to sell you on the world's authenticity, and then when it's convenient for the gameplay to support this open world structure, it doesn't matter anymore. And if I'm trying to buy into this story, which I think the story is more important to this game than anything. Like, the car combat's great, but really you're motivated by the events at hand.
Yeah, you want to believe in the world if you're going to spend all this time in it.
Yeah, so if I want to believe in the world and the game is imposing limitations on me to make me believe in it, but then throws those away when it makes sense for itself, that's when I have a problem. I don't have a problem with games that are steeped in fantasy and never try to address the fact that everything must be logical. But this game tries so hard to put logic behind everything, except when it's convenient.
It's inconvenient for the game, yeah. I got a bunch of questions here then to that point. Johnny Webster asked via Twitter, what's the ratio of time spent on foot as opposed to in car? Thanks, dudes.
Yeah, you spend a lot of time in your car. There is the option to fast travel, which I think is bullshit in a Mad Max game, because this is all about traveling from one point to another, finding opportunities of discovery, both good and bad. And so to fast travel is sort of negating the danger and threat of existing in this world. Anyway, back to the point, you drive quite a lot. The on-foot stuff is really only when you get to a base, and to get there you have to drive. So there is a lot of great stuff that's where you're in a car, and I really enjoyed those moments. Again, like, Mad Max is a great game when it comes to driving. It may not have excellent controls necessarily, but the action and the thrill you get is definitely there.
Yeah, I got that when I played some at Gamescom, but then when I had to go in and actually clear out a base, I thought, okay, this is a bit cumbersome and boring. But one of the things I found particularly odd about when you were talking about the car combat, because so much of it involves like using cars to kill people, is the fact that Max is able to take a hit from a car going at like 100 miles an hour and doesn't hurt him.
Oh yeah. So I can go into a base and get in a fight with some dudes, and before I realized how exploitable the system was, I was trying to play along with it, right? Like, do what it wanted me to do. And I noticed, okay, I got hit a couple times, and all of a sudden I was like, wait, I just died from like that third guy hitting me? But I remember getting run over by a car repeatedly and being fine. You can get hit by a car and you lose about 1/10 of your health. And granted, and you can do this too. You can do Misty Flips all day long if you time your jump properly.
And stand in fire?
You can stand in fire. The rules of this game are so
Wait,
broken.
not that fire.
Not every fire. That's the thing. The game doesn't teach you what it's silly. Like, I don't know how you can justify it and say, well, it's a video game, dude. It's like, yes, I get that. But video games have rules.
Elements like that remind me of, like, you can very easily, if you were a fan of this game, just ignore that stuff and it won't bother you. Whereas if you're not in the position to do that, if you're not feeling like it's justifiable that you can like not carry weapons when you can carry all this shit, or that you can get hit by a car but get killed by 3 punches, like, that's gonna be fucking irritating. Especially if the game isn't entertaining, which it sounds like it's not. It sounds like a lot of the missions are laborious and there's a lot of them to do.
There are a few where it sends you to the sort of far off corners of the wasteland and you go underground, and I really do like those because you're exploring things like a derelict airport, for example, which is kind of interesting. You end up like walking through a huge jetliner that's all broken down, and there are these like red-eyed enemies that kind of scurry about in the shadows, and like I like that sense because it's building the world. But then you fight them and it's the same old combat, and you're literally just doing fetch quests, or you're going to clear out a dungeon more or less.
Some folks were giving out that there was some sort of spoiler about the ultimate ending climactic fight. Perhaps.
Okay.
Maybe it's not.
The fight I described comes towards the end of the game. It is not the final conflict. But I really have to ask people, if you're playing a Mad Max game, which is built around car combat, and there is a main antagonist, do you not expect that you are going to enter into car combat with that antagonist? I just want people to think critically about this, because while I may have given away an element that happened in the story, if you were surprised, I'm sorry. But I imagine that anyone who understands what this game is and who the characters are, that's not surprising. And I didn't talk about the story, by the way. I talked about a battle that you get into. I was telling you earlier, it's like, you play Final Fantasy VII, it's like telling your buddy you fight Sephiroth, and he's like, la 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 la.
Sephiroth?
What? No.
Son of a bitch. I'm actually, like, everyone in the office will attest to this, I am the most irritating person when it comes to spoilers. Like, the amount of, like, times I've been like, la 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 la, when people were talking about innocuous details about Until Dawn. But And I have often rallied to the community when it comes to when there is. Kevin was a frequent spoilerer in tweets and stuff all the fucking time, and sometimes in his reviews as well. But even I found that to just be a little bit too much, considering it's not actually the ultimate ending of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't tell you the outcome. I don't. All I do is say you enter into car combat later in the game with the main bad guy.
Who knew?
I'm sorry.
I'm a little bit disappointed because it looked like Mad Max was it seems like it's sort of a by the number. You know what this looks like actually? It looks like the type of open world game which if it came out 5 years ago probably would have been fine.
Yeah.
But we've
graduated.
This is the year that The Witcher 3 came out. This is the year that Metal Gear Solid, the Phantom Pain comes out, and obviously we don't merit other games against other games, but the goalposts change. And if a game like Infamous was to come out, which just kind of mirrors some aspects of it seems. We wouldn't address it the same way. In fact, when we had Mike Mahardy on the couch last week talking about Gears of War, or Jeff Gerstmann on Giant Bomb giving Gears of War 1 2 out of 5, a game that he adored. Yeah. This is what happens, is that what we expect of these types of games changes, and I guess I can see why if some people have lower expectations or they want to love a game so much, then they get particularly hurt when they see critical assessments not landing where they wanted them to.
And I want to say other outlets, other reviewers gave a lot of praise to Mad Max where I didn't enjoy it. And
some gave it lower. Some
gave it lower. Yeah, and that's the nature of reviews. I have my own opinions, and so do you out there, and that's great. I don't think we should really be critical of each other for having opinions. And frankly, my opinion of this game is that there's too much stuff that is not developed enough or thought out well enough to make it that interesting and enjoyable to play. But the stuff that I do like, car combat, the world itself, some of the characters, that's excellent. And I think if you have the time and you're interested in the game, that you should play it for those things. Just expect that it's not going to be all great.
Peter Brand, thanks so much for coming on.
Always.
Really appreciate it. Stick around. We're going to talk to you in a little bit about other open world games. But you watching at home, here, live, or via YouTube, GameSpot, and whatnot, let us know what you think of Mad Max. Our review is up on GameSpot.com. You can go check it out there and let us know if you're playing the game, what you think of it. Do you agree or do you disagree? Stick it in the comments. We'll be back in just a second. We're going to check out a trailer for The Taken King.
Give me some more of that Bungie money. That's what they want. They want that money. Get that money. Give them that money.
Give them that money. And we'll be back to talk about some open world games.
Give me the money. Taken King. Take my money.
All actions have consequences. And ours have angered a god.
Hey, mama said the way you move won't make you sweat, won't make you groove.
He smells the blood of his son. On our hands.
Hey, baby, oh, baby, pretty baby, gotta make the movie now.
And now, the Taken King comes for us all.
Send in the cavalry.
It is all up to you now.
Get Destiny the Taken King and the complete Destiny adventure in the Legendary Edition. Rated T for Teen.
2015 has been a wonderful year for video games, many of whom have been... Which? Probably which.
Many of which.
They're not people. Many of which have been open world video games. We already had The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt earlier this year. Of course, Mad Max came out this week, as did Metal Gear Solid V, The Phantom Pain. V has come too. I got Peter Brand and Justin Haywald here to have a little chinwag about, I guess, what makes a good open world game. One of the things I'm interested about is that our game of the year last year, Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, fantastic game. Really enjoyed it last year, but I can already think of a handful of open world games this year that have trumped it already. Like open world games, third-person ones especially, have really come on a long way. Like Far Cry 4, GTA 5. Like we're in the sort of golden age for them at the moment.
Animal Crossing.
Yeah. Of course, right there in the outskirts. So I guess I want to ask you guys what it is about, what makes a good open world game, and where do other games fall flat? Justin, first of all, what do you think?
I think one of the ways that some open world games really fail isn't trying to give you, you get either extreme. You either get they're trying to do too much. Like, here's a world where there's just shit everywhere. Assassin's Creed 3 was a perfect example of a beautiful world filled with things to do that you didn't ever want to do. It's like, this is actually getting in the way of my enjoyment. Versus something that's, what was that Rockstar game that had the great facial
Grand Theft Auto 5?
No.
L.A. Noire?
L.A. Noire.
There you go.
There was just a sparse world that was like, this is really cool to explore. I want to do more. But there's nothing. I guess I'll just fast travel. It's neat to drive around, but that's a waste of my time.
So like a delicate balancing act of content against being overwhelmed. Because that was certainly how I felt about Assassin's Creed. I think Black Flag is one of those games where some people are actually sort of more predisposed to having long laundry lists of things to do, and then some people, like myself and Justin, are kind of like intimidated by it.
I like things to do. Assassin's Creed 2 is a perfect example of a game.
Yes.
I collected everything. It's one of the last games that I 100%ed with complete aplomb. I was so excited to 100% it. And then that's why I like getting to Assassin's Creed. I was so disappointed that it didn't have that same feel. It didn't capture me in that same way. But Peter, you're someone who definitely plays a lot of these open world games. But do you have time to collect everything? Is that
do I play a lot of them? Lately, I've been playing a lot of them.
Yeah, that's true.
It's difficult because we sort of work on a tight schedule here where we have to get games done and hit deadlines and such. And I try to give as much time as I can, but it's very important that the things that you're doing are interesting. And when they are interesting, I come back to them because I want to. I certainly don't complete games because I feel like when it's my job to do it, I do it. But, I don't feel like if after I've beaten a game and done the review, I better go back and finish stuff because it's there waiting for me.
Gotta go to the trophy mine.
Yeah,
it's like trophies.
It's like I want to get back into Phantom Pain because the things that I'm doing, they may be similar to something I did a while back, right? There are 150 side missions in that game. That's a lot. But the thing is, with every one of those, you get like a little snippet of audio that's like, where did they get the funding for this? The Soviets, huh? No, they couldn't, you know what I mean? Like, there's always a story beat that ties it back into it. And I think a lot of open world games fail to give you anything beyond a task with a minor reward that doesn't tie into the bigger picture of the world. And that's what's really important to me, because the difference between an open world game and a game where you're just given distinct levels that are kind of disconnected is the fact that you have free roam within a world. You have the right to observe what you wish and make, to sort of decide what this world is all about, rather than it being spoon-fed to you so blatantly. And when a game just gives you chores, you're not learning anything from those.
Witcher 3 did that so beautifully. That was a world where I was thrown in and I loved getting more story and finding out new things about stuff. But I was also happy to just I'm going to go see what's over there. I'm going to get in a boat. And that was one of the first things that I did once the world opened up. I just got in a boat and I traveled to this next huge city. And it's like, there's so much to explore that was intriguing.
It's almost like the open world genre has come from two different genres. You had your sort of role-playing games that were large, like things like, I'm thinking back on old Elder Scrolls games like Dragonfall or things like that, which eventually turned into the Oblivions of the world and the Fallouts and Skyrims and whatnot. And then you kind of just had traditional third-person action games, which had worlds that just got bigger. So instead of having games maybe MDK, which were large open world game or large open areas that you fought within, then instead of them being sort of larger linear levels one after the other, they sort of just broke them out. So then you've got your Infamous and your Crackdown and stuff like that, and kind of like Mad Max. That seems like a game where it's you've just got a bunch of missions, but instead of them being one by one, they're just one after you. They're in an open world, or Far Cry, for instance. But then games like Ground Zeroes or The Witcher 3, they almost seem like they are real worlds that they've created, and they feel more fleshed out. And to your point, it feels like instead of just having a laundry list of missions to do, you have more, I guess, agency to sort of explore and figure out what you want to do yourself.
I mean, you feel like the world isn't centered around you. You feel like you are a part of it, and I think that's very, very important. In games like Mad Max tries to do that. It has different factions in it that are their own little societies, but you're always the center of attention, and obviously that's the job of a main character. But
you have to be the center of attention, but you want to feel like even if I wasn't in this world, it's still happening around me.
Well, right, exactly, yeah. So you go into a mission in the Phantom Pain, right, and it's not like you're going there because there's some important person that's showing up. Whether you're there or not, that would happen, and it's up to you to take care of that guy because you know what's going to happen and it's the right time to do it. But like Mad Max, you show up and it's like, oh, Max is here, that kind of thing. It's, I don't know.
Even Assassin's Creed, which is probably sort of threads the line between the two in a way. That always felt like a world that was just going on. Grand Theft Auto, going back as far as GTA 3, always kind of felt like a world that was happening. Even 1 and 2 actually, they felt like sandboxes that were like actually, or not sandboxes, they felt like real worlds that were actually happening. And then The Witcher 3 is probably the best example where like even when you get involved, shit doesn't go the way you wanted, so you don't even feel that powerful yourself, because when you try to do good, like it's sort of, reality kicks in and it gets skewed some other way.
It's probably a weird example, but The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask is a game that I think imitates that open world feel and having a world where stuff's happening all around you, because it was a game where you do have things you can explore and you know things are going to happen whether you affect them or not. It was very Groundhog's Day, like these guys are going to go through their day and do their stuff, but I can actually have an effect on that and do something about it, and that changes aspects of the game and the way that they interact and things that happen in the story.
So the open world genre has been around now for a while. Like last generation, we saw sort of like the big renaissance where like a lot of other genres started to bleed into it. We're now starting to see like some really superb games this year taking advantage of it. Well, what do you guys think are like the sort of the main rules of like this is what you need to make a really truly great modern open world game, like going throughout the rest of this year into 2016? Justin, what do you think like are aspects of open world games that we require now for a truly wonderful game that you wouldn't have had 4 or 5 years ago in a Crackdown or
Although we
an
wouldn't have
Infamous?
had 4 or 5, because I was just going to say fishing. I really want fishing. I just want to be able to sit.
Is it tattoos? Is it sweet watches? Is it customization?
I love customization, like things that. And I'm always torn on this. Like, I love GTA and like having all the different stores and places you can explore and like giving you a reason to go to these places. But at the same time, like I like having access to all of the customization as I unlock it, which, that's always kind of a weird balance to strike. A good open world game makes you feel like you're accomplishing something, whether you're following the main story or not. Even if you're just wandering around, you're going through the world. You want to feel like what I just did was worthwhile and meaningful, and I got something cool out of it. Whether I was helping a dude out in the middle of a marsh, or whether I was following the set path and going down, like here's where I need to go in the game.
One of the things that always, I think, I'm the type of person who like, I spend my weekends kind of, exploring, and I like going cycling on my own. I genuinely have always loved like exploring new places. And for me, like in these games, I think the thing that really matters the most is that it feels like a world in which something crazy is just around the corner. That it's not like, a game I really enjoyed, which was Infamous Second Son that came out, was it last year or the year before? Like, you look at that, or you look at a game like Watch Dogs, like they just feel like video game worlds, and you know exactly what's on around the next block. It's going to be the same thing, and people on their phones or whatever. Whereas like a game like The Witcher or Fallout or Skyrim, you never really have that sense of you can see everything. It's kind of like you've got the blinders on. Yeah. I think that sense of like wonder and discovery is maybe the most important thing.
My favorite open world game is walking through the Tenderloin in San Francisco.
Exactly.
San Francisco humor.
Life in imitating art. What about yourself, Peter? You've played 2 open world games in the past week. The Phantom Pain, of course, and Mad Max. Yeah. What do you think are sort of elements that are important in like an open world game in 2015?
A degree of authenticity is needed, but it's not required. But I think the 2 things that are required, you guys both already brought up, right? Which is feeling like you are a part of a thing without being the only thing that is in control, and the sense of discovery and surprise. I think if the Phantom Pain was a more like consistently like repetitive environment, and you kind of get the sense in the beginning, or you think at the beginning, like, oh man, all Afghanistan is going to look the same.
Yeah, I'm like 2 hours, I'm 6 hours in, I guess, and I'm kind of thinking, is this what it is then for here on?
Yeah, but you find new things, and the same thing happens again when you go to the next country, and it is being in a place that is worth exploring with activities that are worth doing. And a society that's worth participating in, whether that's for good or for evil.
Having a pet helps too.
And having a pet that can't die. That's why Fallout 4 is probably going to be Game of the Year 2015.
Also,
Witcher having your horse.
That's true. And you got actually horses seems to be but you've got D-Horse. Is that his name?
Yeah.
D-Horse.
D-Horse.
Does D stand for dog or diamond?
Dog horse.
Dog horse, right? You've got dog meat or whatever the hell is in Fallout 4, perhaps. We'll see. We've got roach. Horses.
You know what it is? An attention to detail. That's what more open world games need. Because it's the little things that add up, man.
That's what the D stands for. Detail horse.
Detail
Got
horse.
it.
The details on the D.
Thank you so much, Peter Brown, Justin Haywolf, for coming in and talking a whole load of mess about open world video games. If you have any thoughts on what makes a great open world game, please, by all means, let us know in the comment box below. And that's the show.
That's it.
There you go, folks.
did it.
Before we go, I want to do a quick shout out to a very important member of the GameSpot community who sadly passed away. We found out last week. In Before You All was known as another username prior. John WH18 was a member of our forums, specifically System Wars, and there were a lot chatting in that fantastic community there that's been there for a long time. I celebrated my 10-year anniversary as a GameSpot registered user just last week on the 25th of August, and I can attest to the great friends that I met via that and the blogs and everything on GameSpot. So to John's family, to everyone who knew In Before You All, both in the community and in real life, our thoughts are with you guys, of course. Thank you for spending some of your life with us, John, and may you rest in peace. And that's our show for this week, folks. You're going to go play some video games today? You're going to go hit up some more features on the site? What you got going on?
No, I'm going to go cry.
You're going to go cry? Hey, man, this stuff happens.
This is dark.
It's the way of it. I always feel like the online communities, this is like a particularly difficult sort of thing that happens, like meeting people via the internet, or often not meeting them, like just grazing, passing people via Twitter and forums and stuff like that. It's like a sort of a strange 21st century type of thing, but yeah, all we can do, I guess, is just remember people and continue on and I guess keep complaining about video games and System Wars.
Or just be good to each other. Let's just be good.
Or just be good to each other. Yes, on the internet and in the comments. Yeah, so that's our show this week. Thanks so much for everyone tuning in. Thanks so much to Mary Kish, Josh Shaw, Eric Tay, Dan Mahorek, Tyrud, everyone in the back setting up the show. And thank you for watching, and thank you to our wonderful community at GameSpot. Of course, everyone who watches on Twitch and YouTube as well, but a special thought to everyone on the GameSpot community for keeping us doing all this stuff. And we'll see you guys next week. There's a bonus episode of Lobby as well going up on the site soon enough. Thursday, hopefully. Yeah. It's been a long week, so give Mary a bit of time on that. There's a lot of fixing has to happen on that. So make sure you check back the site to watch that as well. And we will see you next time, Tuesday, 2 p.m. Pacific, right here on GameSpot.com. Adios.